don't want to boast about it, but I haven't wasted those occasions. I did photograph beautiful things. I mean, I did a lovely book on India, which is a fascinating part of the world, and I've tried to say to the people who look at my photographs, they're not all about people dying and blood and gore and all that kind of stuff. And to this day, as you mentioned earlier about my landscapes, they are my kind of medication now.
Well, I read that you described them, landscapes have become a form of meditation, and you just used the word medication. So is that's an important thing, to go and lose yourself in a wide open space, perhaps?
Well, I swing my leg over the stile at the end of my garden. I've got a rather nice garden in Somerset and a valley below, and I get over that thing, and it's as if someone's given me my youth back, and it's... I've been in prison in Uganda and places like that, and I've had people punching me and abusing me and, threatening my life. And, when I climb over that fence at the end of my garden, I think this is pure paradise. And, and even if I don't get a photograph that day, I stand sometimes, like I did 2 days ago, in a field, watching the clouds and moving and shafting around in different areas with almost cathedral light. And I come away and I didn't get a picture. That doesn't mean to say I deserve to be rewarded, other than the freedom I have just standing in that field.
No, I know. I must, from my own experiences when I was locked up in Beirut and coming home and just, I live on the other side of the country in Suffolk, but that sense of a huge cathedral of light above one, which one can just walk into, is a wonderful form of escape and medication. Interesting, your landscapes are often of winter shots, and I wondered whether there's something you like about a crisp, clear, perhaps almost bleak landscape.
Well, people accuse my landscapes of being, war landscapes, or something to do with war. Of course, there's a darkness in me, and, I go into my darkroom because I process all my film, which most people don't do these days. And I still use film, which most people don't do. And I inject much more, as I did in my war photographs. I don't want people to look at one of my photographs and not notice it. So I used to bring this energy, sometimes which was combined with my anger. And now the energy is combined with my pleasure when I do my landscapes. So I only photograph landscape in the winter because I love the nakedness of the English countryside. It doesn't mean to say, it's a funny thing for me to say this, but it doesn't mean to say because the trees are naked that they're dead, as in the case of when I photographed dead North Vietnamese soldiers who I had the utmost respect for their courage. It doesn't mean to say because they're dead they don't have a statement for me to offer on their behalf, you see.
I was interested looking at your book Southern Frontiers, in which you travel around the southern edge of the Roman Empire, photographing some of the fantastic ruins, and you revisited Lebanon, where of course you covered the horrors and the chaos of the civil war in the late 70s and 80s, and you went to Baalbek and photographed the fantastic Roman ruins there. I wonder, do the shadows of history, of ancient and modern, somehow cast themselves across your photographs or your mind as you're working in such locations?
Well, I went many years ago with Bruce Chatwin, the writer, and I've travelled with great writers who I consider to be my tutors because they were much more educated than I was at the time. But when I started going to, and Baalbek was the first place, of course, I started this project which nobody else seemed to be interested in but me, and I virtually financed it because I became so passionate about it. But unfortunately, there's danger in those places. The danger was of what's repeated itself with me in Syria, and when I fell over and broke one of my ribs and collapsed my lung. Instead of being, enjoying it, I wound up in hospital. But when you're amongst those ruins, which are the most majestic, beautiful things you've ever seen, you fear you can hear the distant cries of others who suffered in creating those great places. None of these great places in the world we admire so much were put there without suffering and pain, and stone is heavy and dangerous, and you can bet your life it killed thousands of people in the constructions of those amazing places.
When you're away from those locations which do speak so strongly of history and so profoundly, are the towns, if you like, the societies around them, do they begin to feel much more the same to you now? There's a sort of a sense of homogenization.
Well, when I was in Baalbek, it was during Ramadan, which is not a good idea to be in the Middle East when you're working. Everyone seems to be fraught with hunger and bad tempers. And then I was in this particular place. Baalbek is the stronghold of Hezbollah. There's always a twinge of some threatening kind of thing you have to try and eradicate and say, I've come here to do this beautiful thing, and then suddenly you see tanks and soldiers, and there's a confusion, and people try to stop me a lot in those sites. I went right through the Middle East, all the way to Algeria, which was the worst place for problems. And, I think all I want to do is to take pictures, and somehow people disregard that and treat me as a spy or some threatening, thing.
With ordinary people who you want to take photographs of nowadays, have we all become so used to, because of the internet, because of television, etc., the idea of being photographed? That dreadful thing of everyone wants to be a celebrity. Do you find people are somehow more savvy, more knowing when you go around? I was just travelling in India, and everybody wanted to be photographed with Westerners, or to just have their photograph on our cameras to be taken. Is that something that you've noticed?
No, not really. I mean, I've always approached taking photographs with caution, because, I remember once getting very badly attacked in Beirut, and a woman came around the corner only to see a whole apartment block of flats, crushed into what could only be described as a club sandwich. And inside were some of her relatives, and I made the mistake of quickly, I heard the scream of photographing this woman, and she came rushing over and started attacking me. And I think she was right in a way. I mean, I took the blows, and it was a shocking experience. And I went back to my hotel, and somebody came in and said, that woman's just been killed. Another bomb has gone off and killed her. So, I don't carry my life's work lightly. There are too many bad days in my life, in the history of my life, for me to feel comfortable about what the stage I've got to today. And that's why I escape into the English countryside and try to not hear those terrible cries of anguish, and hearing guns killing people in shop doorways in Beirut, as I saw many years ago. So, I'm looking for a way out of all that.
I started by asking you whether home was somewhere as a young man you wanted to get away from. Now, the way you're speaking, is it somewhere you want to get back to?
Where I live in Somerset is my sanctuary. It's where I have thousands of pictures, all my negatives, where I print my work. And I think my spiritual soul is, I've found somewhere where I know I belong. I remember waking up in the jungle many years ago in Vietnam, and I was soaking wet, and I was covered in leeches and millions of mosquito bites, and I thought, I want out of here. And, the one thing that springs to mind is, all of a sudden you start thinking, comfort wouldn't be a bad experience. And the thing I need most of all in my life is a hot bath when I'm really down. I think that will cure all illnesses and all kind of depressions. And that's all I look forward to, is to go back to my house in Somerset and be at peace with myself.
And have a warm bath. Thank you very much, Don. It's very interesting hearing your stories. Thank you, Don McCullin. And Don will be speaking at the Traveller's Tales Festival at the Royal Geographical Society in London next Sunday. That's the 21st, in the afternoon.